Hi, I'm Elvie from Meadowlark Log Homes. I'm going to be answering your questions that have appeared on our YouTube channel and in other places. You guys call in or email. So I'm going to jump right in and read the question and answer it for you, and hope this is helpful. And then you can continue to look for more upcoming Q&A videos like this as we continue to get more questions. And so feel free to subscribe and continue coming back. So let's jump into this. Here's a question. How long does it take from the time the first log is cut when they're bundled and ready to go on the site for final install? That depends on the size of and complexity of the cabin or house. We just got done with 2 Montana cabins, 18 by 24, that took 5 days from start to finish for 2 cabins. So for 1 cabin, it would take about half that time, 2 to 3 days. If it's a larger house, it takes longer. So on average, it takes us about 1 week to pre-assemble 1,000 square feet of house. And then it gets ready for shipment. And one question, do you calculate cost by square foot? The square foot is part of the cost, the way we figure our cost. There's a base of square foot. There's porches, stairways, railings, dormers, gables, gable dormers, complexity, hip valleys, rafters, and things like that also are added on to the way we figure our final cost for the log package. What kinds of trees do you use? Mostly our trees are larch and some spruce and some lodgepole pine, and there's a mix, but right now mostly larch because that's what's mostly available at this time right now. It says, the question is, what's the insulation like on these log homes? How do they handle heat, cold, and humidity? They handle heat, cold, and humidity very well. They're very warm. We're in Montana, which is a pretty cold climate in the wintertime. They heat easily, they retain the heat, and they're cool in the summer. They keep the heat out in the summertime. And humidity, you'd have to air condition the home to get the humidity down because it's going to be the same inside the house as the outside in the summertime. But they handle it fine. So we have a lot of homes in the Midwest and the South with no problems. This is an interesting question here. Amish don't use cranes and technology. Not an Amish building. Well, I hate to disappoint some of you that you're wrong. We grew up old order Amish, and we've used equipment and machinery and modern tools far back as I remember a small boy. We drove around with equipment and sawmills and all kinds of things. So I don't get where people are coming up with this because I think they would like to paint the Amish as a stereotype from the 1800s or something. Do you use any insulation materials between the logs when assembling the house at the owner's site? There's a gasket placed between the logs, also adhesive, a construction adhesive that glues the logs together on the flat to flat where they go together. That seals it and glues it together. How much does a 2-story home settle after the first year? I'll answer that by the total settling from in an 8-foot wall is about 1.5 to 2 inches. And so if you have a 2-story house, you get about 3 inches to 4 inches from the peak to the bottom total, and it takes about 3 years for that settling to occur and to complete. After year 3, generally there's no more settling whatsoever. Here's a question for the 26 by 30 single level. How much for that setup excluding site work, utilities, foundation, and concrete? First of all, of course, we don't do the excavation of the concrete. That would be for other people. The question is for everything to dry it in without that work. You would have to contact the Meadowlark Log Homes office, and they would send you a quote for the log package and a second quote to put it back together with a roof on it, dried in. So the 26 by 30, I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking it's somewhere in the $90,000 range for the logs, subfloor, roof, windows, doors put together. But don't quote me on that. It'd be better to get that straight from the office with an official quote. Another 26 by 30 single level question. How long did it take to build on site? And I believe it took about 8 or 9 days from the time they got there and built the subfloor, put the logs up, put the roof on, put the windows and door in. 8 or 9 days. 26 by 30 question again. The total cost for this exact house. One thing you can do to figure costs on a log house, this is 2020. In cabins and simple houses, you could figure $150 a square foot total cost. It depends so much on how complex you are, how many features you've got. A larger home, the big lodges, can run $250 to $350 a square foot completed. It all depends on the finishings and the level of finish. Generally, the bigger the home, the higher the level of finish. The smaller the cabin, generally they're much simpler. There's not that high level of finish, so it's a lot less. $150 a square foot on the low end to $350 on the high end. There's a big range. It all depends what you're getting and what your finishing materials are made of. The next question, can your homes withstand a Category 5 hurricane? I would say they can. They're all engineered for that. But I don't know if one of ours has been in that kind of a hurricane. That sounds pretty vicious, but I would think it wouldn't be a problem. And the 26 by 30 question, no plumbing. I didn't see the plumbing. Well, they just don't have it installed yet. After we're gone, they'll build the frame walls and bring the plumbing up from underneath the crawl space into the kitchen, into the frame walls of the bathroom. So that's why there was no plumbing in that video. Question, what Amish sect do the Millers belong to? So when I was born, we were part of the Old Order Amish in Indiana and then Montana later for the first, I'm going to say about 40 years here in Montana probably with the Old Order Amish. And then we were a little too progressive for a lot of them. So they wanted to disfellowship us from the Old Order group. And we still love the Amish. And so, but as far as we don't really belong to a certain sect of the Amish, it's more like that was our past. And while we love them, embrace them all, we are part of the greater body of Christ. So you could say we're non-denominational. But a lot of times we and others still refer to us as Amish, even though it's not anything what it used to be. We've definitely progressed. Why isn't the subfloor part bordered with concrete? It's just less than 1 inch of this plywood sheet material separating you from the elements from the outside. Why can't it all be logs from the bottom all the way up? So that question is, there is a basement concrete wall or a crawl space concrete wall built, and then the wood subfloor system is on top of that. There's a floor and the logs start on top of that. Generally, we don't put the logs down on the concrete. It's the floor system on top of the concrete walls and then the logs, if that makes sense. Are logs kiln dried? No, they're not kiln dried. They're standing dead, a lot of them, or air dried, because we have a dry climate. We take the bark off and they cure and season that way. So they're very well cured. What's the diameter of the logs is a question. There are smaller logs and larger logs depending on the size of the house, from a cabin to a lodge, from 10 inch to 20 inch. What kind of R value is the roof with 5 inches of insulation? And this question is referring to somebody watched us spray the foam in there, 5 inches of poly spray foam in the roof cavity. That is R38. In some parts of the country, they're requiring R49, so we go with, I believe it's 7 or 8 inches of insulation to meet the code. So whatever your code is in your area, we'll spray that amount in, but 5 inches as a minimum, and that's very warm for the roof system. That wraps up the questions for today, and please subscribe and look for more Q&A coming up in the future soon. Thank you.